Long ago, before the seasons learned to turn in their perfect circle, the kingdom of Eldralore thrived beneath skies as clear as polished glass. It was a land of soft green hills that rolled lazily into valleys stitched with silver streams. At the heart of it all stood the capital, Aryn Keep, with its tall white towers gleaming like moonlight caught in stone. And in those towers lived a boy named Prince Aryn, only 17 summers old, though with eyes that seemed older than the years behind them. Aryn was not like the princes in the songs sung by wandering minstrels. He was quieter, less eager for tournaments or feasts. Instead, he loved the hush of the royal library, the slow turning of ancient pages, and the way the firelight pooled in warm gold over old maps. But no story stays in its peaceful chapter forever. One autumn dusk, a wind colder than any Eldralore had known came spilling over the hills. It was not the clean, crisp cold of winter, but something sharp, bitter, and wrong. The night sky blackened, though no clouds could be seen, and a pale mist curled through the streets. The people of Aryn Keep whispered of ill omens. Farmers woke to find their fields withered overnight. Rivers slowed to a sluggish crawl. Children grew restless, plagued by strange dreams they could not remember upon waking. By the seventh day, even the king's voice trembled when he addressed his council. "It is the curse of Scaerath, the Ashe dragon," said the oldest court wizard, his staff rattling against the flagstones. "A darkness bound long ago has been loosened. No one dared speak the dragon's name twice." The king turned to Aryn. "My son, this shadow was called forth by no accident. A pact was broken, a promise made by our ancestors. Now Scaerath stirs in the mountains, and if no one stops him, the curse will smother all of Eldralore." Aryn's stomach twisted. He had read the stories. The dragon with scales like black glass, eyes like molten gold, and breath of living ash. No knight in 300 years had faced him and returned. "I will send the kingdom's best," the king began, but the wizard raised a trembling hand. "Your Majesty, the bond is old magic. Only the blood of the royal line can end it. No sword from another hand will pierce the Ashe dragon's hide." The hall fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward the young prince. Aryn swallowed hard. His heart told him to look away, to let someone else bear the weight. But another part, the part that had always looked past the safety of the keep's walls, wondering what lay beyond, spoke louder. "If the curse ends only with me," Aryn said quietly, "then I will go." That night, preparations began. In the armory, blacksmiths polished a sword of moon steel, said to hold the blessing of the first star. The stable hands saddled Edric, the prince's swift gray steed. And in the royal library, the wizard placed an ancient map before Aryn. Its edges frayed, its ink faded like whispers lost to time. "The Ashe dragon nests beyond the spine of dusk," the wizard said. "You will pass through the Vale of Whispers, where voices in the mist will try to turn you back. Then the Frostwood, where even the trees sleep in ice. And at last, the Black Hollow, where Scaerath waits." As the moon rose, Aryn stood alone on the eastern wall, gazing toward the dark line of mountains. The wind was cold against his face, but there was a quiet steadiness in his chest. Fear walked beside him, but so did resolve. Somewhere in the distance, faint as an echo, came the low, rolling rumble of a dragon's roar. And the journey had begun. Dawn came with the sky washed in pale silver, the first frost clinging to the edges of the stone courtyard. Aryn stood beside Edric, the stallion's breath steaming in the cold air. The king placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his fingers firm but trembling slightly. "Return to me, my son," the king said. It was both a command and a plea. Aryn only nodded. Words felt too fragile for that moment. The great gates of Aryn Keep opened with a groan, spilling him into the waking world beyond the walls. The streets were quiet, though here and there figures emerged from doorways, bowing their heads as he passed. Some clutched charms, others whispered prayers to the old gods. Every face carried the same silent hope, that the boy riding out alone might somehow return with the dawn restored. The road eastward led first through farmland, where blackened fields lay abandoned and scarecrows slumped like weary sentries. The further he went, the heavier the air seemed, as though the curse were not just a thing seen, but a weight carried by every living thing. By midday, the horizon darkened ahead. A thin wall of pale mist stretched across the land, the entrance to the Vale of Whispers. He slowed Edric to a walk. The story said the Vale had no wind, yet the mist drifted in restless swirls, curling around his boots, clinging to his cloak. The world beyond it was muffled. Even the sound of the horse's hooves seemed swallowed before it could reach his ears. Then came the voices. At first they were faint, little more than a sigh in the mist. But as he rode deeper, they grew clearer, though never sharp enough to fully understand. Words slid against the edges of hearing. Turn back, go no further. Your blood will feed the Ashe. Aryn clenched the reins tighter. They're nothing but tricks, he murmured to himself. But the Vale knew him. The voices shifted, becoming more personal. The voice of his tutor, telling him he was too frail for such a quest. The voice of his friend Ryneth, accusing him of abandoning the keep. And, worst of all, the voice of his mother, long gone from this world, begging him to come home. His breath caught. Edric shied beneath him, sensing his unease. Aryn closed his eyes for a moment and pictured the royal library, the scent of old parchment, the soft light on the stone floor. He imagined the kingdom bathed again in warm sun, children laughing in the streets without fear. That was the truth. The rest was mist and shadow. When he opened his eyes, the voices faltered. The mist grew thinner, and ahead, a break in the Vale revealed the forest edge. The Vale had failed to turn him back. Beyond the mist stood the Frostwood, a forest of towering pines draped in ice, their branches sagging under the weight. The air was sharper here, every breath stinging his lungs. Somewhere in its depths, wolves howled, not in hunger, but as if mourning. Aryn guided Edric into the frozen gloom. The light dwindled quickly beneath the canopy, and frost crept over every root and fallen log. Yet there was beauty in it, sunlight caught in icicles, turning them into spears of fire and glass, the crunch of snow beneath hooves, the stillness that felt as though time itself had slowed to watch him pass. But the Frostwood was not without dangers. He had gone no more than an hour into its heart when the silence broke. A low growl rolled through the trees, deep and resonant. Edric tossed his head, ears twitching. Shadows shifted between the trunks, and then, with a crack of frozen branches, a creature emerged. It was a wolf, but larger than any Aryn had ever seen. Easily the size of a stag, its fur white as fresh fallen snow, eyes burning a fierce blue. It stepped forward, muscles rippling under its coat, and bared teeth long enough to catch the light. Aryn drew the moon steel blade. "I have no quarrel with you," he said, voice steady, though his heart raced. The wolf tilted its head, almost curious, but did not retreat. The Frostwood had its own guardians, and it seemed Aryn's journey would not pass unchallenged. The white wolf's paws sank into the snow with a soundless grace. Its eyes locked on Aryn, as though weighing the truth of his words. The air between them tightened, a space strung with a delicate thread between fight and flight. Edric shifted uneasily beneath Aryn, his breath pluming in quick bursts. The prince's grip on the moonsteel blade was firm, but not tense. He knew that to strike first might be to lose. Slowly, the wolf circled, paws barely breaking the snow's crust. Aryn turned with it, keeping the creature in sight. He had heard of such beings in old tales, warden beasts, spirits bound to sacred places, protectors of the old magic. They were said to test the hearts of travelers, though no story agreed on what the test would be. When the wolf finally stopped, it let out a low chuff of air and sat upon its haunches. Its gaze was piercing, as if it could see not just the young prince before it, but every choice, every fear, every shadow Aryn carried within. Then, in a voice that was neither growl nor human speech, but but something between, it spoke. Blood of kings, why tread in the frostwood? Aryn blinked. He had not expected words. I seek Scaerath, the Ashe dragon, he said, his voice steady. The kingdom suffers under his curse. I mean to end it. The wolf's ears flicked. And what would you give to end it? Gold, steel, or the warmth of your own life? If my life is the price, Aryn said, I will pay it, but not in vain. Not if it means Eldralore will see the sun again. The wolf studied him for a long moment. Then it rose, padding closer until its great head was level with his own. Its breath was cold against his cheek. Many claim they will face death, it said softly. Fewer mean it. Before Aryn could answer, the wolf turned and began walking into the deeper forest, pausing only to glance back. An invitation. Aryn sheathed his sword and followed, Edric's hooves crunching in the snow. They traveled in silence, deeper into the frostwood's heart. Strange shapes loomed among the trees, frozen statues of men, beasts, and things Aryn could not name. Their faces caught in expressions of fear or awe. Eyes so pure it was almost invisible held them still, like moments plucked from time. At last, they came to a small clearing where the snow lay untouched. The wolf stopped and turned to him. The road you take will strip you bare, Prince, it said. Strength of arm will not be enough. You must guard the fire within, or the dragon's ash will smother it. It stepped closer, pressing its forehead briefly against his. A sudden chill sank into his skin, followed by a strange warmth in his chest. A flicker, like the first spark coaxed from flint. When the wolf drew back, its eyes glimmered with an unearthly light. When the final darkness comes, remember the spark. Without another word, it turned and vanished into the trees, melting into the frostwood shadows as though it had never been there at all. Aryn stood for a moment, unsure whether what had just passed was a trial or a blessing. But the warmth in his chest remained, steady and small. He remounted Edric and pressed onward. The frostwood began to thin, the trees drawing back until the sky opened above him once more. Beyond lay a stretch of barren land. The earth blackened and cracked. Heat shimmered faintly in the air, though no sun broke the clouds. The Black Hollow was near, and somewhere in its depths, Scaerath waited. The barren stretch before Aryn seemed to swallow sound. No wind stirred the cracked earth. The sky above was a dull iron gray, the air heavy with the faint scent of burnt stone. Edric's hooves struck the ground with muted thuds, sending up little curls of black dust that clung to Aryn's cloak. Each step forward felt as if he were crossing into a place that had been abandoned not just by people, but by time itself. In the distance, jagged spires of rock jutted from the land like the bones of some long-dead giant. Between them yawned the mouth of the Black Hollow, a gash in the world, deep and dark. Even from afar, Aryn could feel the heat seeping from it, a steady pulse like the breath of something sleeping. They descended slowly into the hollow, the path twisting between cliffs of black obsidian. The walls seemed to lean inward, pressing close, forcing the light into thin strips. Here and there, faint trails of smoke curled from cracks in the stone. Then came the first sign of the dragon. It was not sight, but sound, a low, deep rumble that Aryn felt in his bones before he heard it with his ears. The vibration seemed to roll through the ground itself, as if the very rock remembered fear. Edric balked, muscles tensing, and Aryn dismounted, leading him by the reins. Easy, he whispered, though the words felt small in the vast silence. Further in, the walls opened into a wide cavern. The floor was a mix of cracked stone and patches of black sand that shimmered faintly with heat. In the center lay a massive boulder. No, not a boulder. A skull. The bones were unlike anything Aryn had ever seen. Easily 3 times the size of a horse, the teeth long and curved like scythes. A dragon's remains, bleached pale by centuries. The sight sent a chill through him, for it meant one had died here before, and perhaps another could, too. Beyond the skull, the cavern narrowed again, funneling into a tunnel that glowed faintly with a dull red light. The air grew warmer with each step, the faint heat becoming a steady wave. Then came the ash. It drifted down from the tunnel ahead, fine and soft, yet carrying the sharp scent of fire long past burning. Each flake that touched his skin left a faint sting, as if it carried memory. Echoes of forests turned to cinder, of cities swallowed by flame. Aryn wrapped his scarf over his mouth and pressed on. The glow ahead brightened, shifting from red to orange. The tunnel walls pulsed with reflected light, and the steady rumble became the deep, rhythmic sound of breathing. He stepped into a vast chamber. The floor sloped toward a pit of molten rock, its surface shifting in slow waves. Around it, the stone was blackened and warped, shaped by years of heat. And there, sprawled along the far edge, lay Scaerath. Even in sleep, the ash dragon was terrible to behold. His scales gleamed like shards of black glass, each one edged in faint red as though lit from within. Smoke curled lazily from his nostrils, and his wings, folded close, were vast enough to shadow the whole chamber. Aryn's heart pounded. The warmth in his chest, the spark given by the white wolf, flickered as if sensing the nearness of its foe. He had found the dragon. The question now was whether he could wake it and still live to see the sun again. Aryn stood at the threshold of the chamber, his boots planted on stone that was warm enough to feel through the soles. The air shimmered faintly with heat, and every breath he drew carried the taste of smoke. The glow of the molten pit painted the walls in shifting orange and red, like firelight on wet ink. Thin cracks in the stone bled tiny rivulets of molten rock, which hissed softly where they met the cooler floor. Scaerath lay with his head resting on one foreleg, the other clawed limb curled loosely before him. Each talon was as long as a spear, gleaming faintly in the light. Even in sleep, the dragon's chest rose and fell with the steady rhythm of an ancient tide, the rumble of his breathing echoing up into the ceiling like distant thunder. Aryn took a slow step forward. The moonsteel sword felt heavier in his hand than ever before, though the hilt was warm against his palm. The metal itself seemed to hum faintly, as though it recognized the presence of what it had been forged to face. His mind was a storm of thoughts. He remembered the court wizard's voice. Only the blood of the royal line can end it. He remembered the white wolf pressing its cold brow to his, speaking of the spark. And he remembered the stories in the royal library. Tales where heroes slayed beasts with a single strike. Tales that did not speak of the fear that came before that strike. He approached the molten pit. Its surface shifted lazily, like a great beast breathing beneath a thin crust. Now and then, bubbles of lava rose and burst with a soft plop, sending small droplets arcing into the air before hissing out on the stone. Aryn crouched low, studying the dragon. Scaerath's scales were not simply black. They were layered, each edge catching the light in faint crimson. The spaces between them glowed dimly, like embers banked beneath ash. The prince's heartbeat matched the slow rhythm of the dragon's breaths. He could not decide whether to be grateful for the stillness or terrified of the moment it would end. From somewhere deep within himself, he found his voice. "Scaerath," he said quietly, the sound barely above a whisper. "Your curse has stolen the light from Eldralore. I will see it ended." The dragon did not stir. He took another step, his voice stronger. "I am Aryn, son of the king, and I bear the blood that can end you. Wake and face me." The effect was immediate. The deep rumble of breathing shifted. It became a growl, rising from somewhere far deeper than any cavern. Scaerath's nostrils flared, releasing a plume of smoke that curled upward and spread across the ceiling. One massive golden eye snapped open, its slit pupil narrowing on the figure standing before him. The chamber seemed to shrink under the weight of that gaze. The dragon rose slowly, each movement deliberate, the sound of his scales like stone grinding on stone. His wings unfurled halfway, the leathery membranes catching the red light and turning it to blood. "Little spark," Scaerath rumbled, his voice a sound and a vibration both, shaking the stone beneath Aryn's boots. "Do you think to end me, as if I were a tale in a book. "I think to end your curse," Aryn replied. "If that means ending you, then yes." The dragon's lips pulled back in something that might have been a smile, revealing teeth like curved blades. "Then come, little spark. Let us see how long your flame endures." Scaerath's head lowered, his golden eyes fixed on Aryn as a predator fixes on prey. The dragon's breath rolled out in waves of heat, carrying the acrid scent of burned stone and ancient fire. Aryn's fingers tightened around the moonsteel hilt. The warmth in his chest, the spark, pulsed once, as if aware that its purpose had arrived. They circled each other slowly, the dragon's massive claws scraping faint furrows in the rock, Aryn's boots crunching against the thin crust of cooling lava. "You think this is about your kingdom?" Scaerath's voice coiled through the chamber, thick with disdain. "Your sun will fade again, even if I fall. Another shadow will come. It always comes." "Maybe," Aryn said, "but not today. Not while I still stand." The dragon's growl deepened. Whether in amusement or irritation, Aryn could not tell. Scaerath struck first. One clawed foreleg shot forward, faster than Aryn had expected from such a massive creature. He dove aside, the claws raking sparks from the stone where he had stood. Rolling to his feet, he brought the moonsteel sword up in a two-handed grip. The dragon swung his tail next, a black blur that swept low across the ground. Aryn leapt, barely clearing it, and landed in a crouch. His heart hammered in his ears, the heat making sweat sting his eyes. He darted forward and swung at the joint of Scaerath's foreleg, the blade biting into the black, glass-like scales. For an instant, there was resistance, then a sharp hiss as the edge cut through, spilling a thin line of molten blood that sizzled where it touched the stone. The dragon's roar shook the cavern. He reared back, wings snapping fully open, sending a gust of heated wind that nearly knocked Aryn off his feet. From deep in Scaerath's chest came a gathering sound, the slow, rising thunder of fire being born. The glow between his scales flared, and a bright red light bloomed at the back of his throat. Aryn knew what was coming. He sprinted sideways as the dragon's head lashed toward him, and a torrent of ash-laden flame erupted, washing across the floor in a blinding wave. The stone hissed and bubbled where the fire touched it, leaving glowing streaks in its wake. The prince skidded behind a jut of rock, his cloak smoldering at the edges. The spark in his chest pulsed again, steadier now, as if reminding him, "Not yet. You're not done." Scaerath turned, smoke rising in lazy curls from between his teeth. "Run, little spark," he rumbled. "Let the dark take your bones, and I may leave your people to dream a little longer." Aryn stepped out from behind a rock, the moonsteel blade gleaming in the molten light. "No," he said, "I came to wake the sun." And with that, he charged. Aryn's boots pounded the scorched stone, each step driving him toward the dragon's looming bulk. Scaerath's head whipped around to meet him, the golden eyes narrowing. The dragon's claws came down again, hard enough to crack the floor. Aryn slipped between them, the heat pressing against him like a solid wall. He swung at the softer scales of the belly, but Scaerath twisted away, the sword's tip scraping harmlessly along a ridge of obsidian hide. "Faster than I thought," the dragon growled, but speed fades with fear. A gust of wings followed, not enough to lift the beast, but enough to throw Aryn off balance. Scaerath seized the opening, his tail lashing sideways. It struck the prince squarely, the blow a thunderclap of pain that hurled him across the chamber. He hit the ground hard, the air punched from his lungs. For a heartbeat, the world was a blur of heat and sound. The molten pit's hiss, the scrape of claws, the deep rumble of the dragon drawing breath again. The spark in his chest flickered, and for the first time he felt it strain, as though the ash in the air sought to smother it. Through the haze, he remembered the white wolf's words. "When the final darkness comes, remember the spark." He forced himself up, every muscle screaming, and looked at the dragon. Really looked. Scaerath's scales were thickest along the back and flanks, the moonsteel barely scratching them. But between the plates at the base of the neck and along the joints, the glow of inner fire was visible. And when the dragon roared, his chest brightened for a breath before the flame erupted. It wasn't just a weakness, it was a rhythm. The dragon was fire, but fire needed air. When he gathered flame, there was a moment, just a moment, when his chest was open and his guard dropped. Aryn's mind raced. He couldn't simply wait for that moment. Scaerath was too fast, too aware. He'd have to force it. The dragon advanced, each step cracking the floor. "Your kind always believes their light will last," Scaerath said, smoke curling from his jaws. "It never does. Ashe is patient, and so is the dawn," Aryn replied. He darted forward, aiming a slash at the dragon's leg, not to wound, but to draw its attention. The blade glanced off, and Scaerath roared, pulling his head low to snap at him. Aryn feinted left, then dove right, forcing the dragon to twist. The movement drew a sound from deep within Scaerath's chest, the telltale thunder of gathering flame. Aryn's pulse surged. This was it. He sprinted toward the dragon's front, leaping onto a jut of rock to gain height. The glow in Scaerath's chest flared bright, the jaws parting. Aryn drove the moonsteel sword down with both hands, aiming for the soft gap between the scales at the base of the neck. The blade sank deep, the heat so intense it seared the hilt in his grip. Scaerath's roar was a blast of sound and fire, the force hurling Aryn backward into the stone wall. The sword was wrenched from his hands, buried in the dragon's flesh. The beast staggered, molten blood spilling to the ground in hissing streams. But even as Aryn gasped for breath, he saw the truth. It wasn't enough. The dragon turned toward him, the wound smoking but still glowing from within, the golden eyes burning hotter than ever. Not bad for a spark. Scaerath's massive head swung toward Aryn, smoke trailing from the wound where the moonsteel blade still jutted like a thorn. The dragon's growl was lower now, more dangerous. Not the roar of an untouchable tyrant, but the promise of retribution. The ground trembled as he advanced. With each step, embers shook loose from between his scales, hissing where they landed. Aryn scrambled upright, forcing his legs to obey, though every breath scraped his lungs raw. His sword was still lodged in the dragon's neck, too far to reach without being crushed. Scaerath's tail lashed, striking the floor in an explosion of shattered stone. "You bleed, little spark," the dragon said, his voice rumbling like distant earthquakes. "I could end you now, but where is the fun in that?" Aryn backed toward the molten pit, the heat behind him almost unbearable. He was cornered, either burned alive or torn apart. The spark in his chest fluttered weakly. When the final darkness comes, remember the spark. The wolf's words echoed through his mind, stronger than the dragon's roar. He closed his eyes for half a heartbeat and reached inward. It was there, a small, steady point of light, untouched by the heat or the ash. And when he focused on it, he felt more than just warmth. He felt the snow of the frostwood beneath his boots, the sharp scent of pine, the steady gaze of the white wolf. The light flared. Scaerath lunged, jaws opening in a burst of fire, but Aryn moved before the flame could take him. He dove low, rolling beneath the dragon's head, the heat scorching the back of his neck. His hands found the sword's hilt, still burning hot, and the spark within him seemed to pour through his arms. The moonsteel blazed white. With a cry that was equal parts pain and defiance, Aryn wrenched the blade free and drove it deeper, twisting hard. The glow from the spark raced down the steel and into the wound, spilling through the dragon's body like lightning through dark clouds. Scaerath roared, wings flaring wide, the force of it sending a blast of hot wind through the cavern. His body convulsed, claws tearing great gouges in the stone. The molten pit churned violently, sending waves of lava slapping against the edges. Aryn staggered back, the sword still in his hands. The spark within his chest was fading now. Not dying, but settling, as though its purpose had been given over to the blade. The dragon sagged to one knee, smoke pouring from his jaws. "What have you done?" Scaerath's voice was weaker now, but still edged with venom. "Giving you back to the dark," Aryn said. The dragon's golden eyes narrowed. "You think killing me will end it? Fool boy, the curse is older than us both." Before Aryn could reply, Scaerath's body shuddered, the glow within dimming to embers. He slumped forward, his massive form striking the stone with a sound like a collapsing mountain. The chamber went still, save for the slow hiss of cooling rock. The cavern felt strangely hollow without the dragon's breath filling it. The heat began to fade, replaced by a dry stillness. Aryn stood where he was, chest heaving, the moonsteel sword's glow dimming in his grip. Scaerath's body lay motionless, a dark mountain of glassy scales. Smoke drifted lazily from the wound, curling upward to vanish into the shadows above. Aryn's gaze fell to the dragon's eyes. Even dimmed, they held a strange awareness, not the wild fury of battle, but something almost knowing. He stepped closer. "Is it done?" he asked aloud, though there was no one to answer. And then, faint as a last breath, the dragon's voice stirred in his mind. "Not done. Little spark. You burn me, but the shadow remains." Aryn's grip tightened on the sword. "What shadow? A curse older than fire, older than kings. I was its chain. Now the chain is broken." The words faded, leaving only silence. Aryn felt the floor tremble, not with Scaerath's movement, but with something deeper further below. The molten pit pulsed once, sending a ripple across its surface. The glow was wrong now, darker, more like the red of fresh blood than the orange of flame. Whatever bound the curse to the dragon had not been destroyed. It had been released. The spark in his chest fluttered, weak but insistent, and a cold understanding settled over him. The fight was not over. He sheathed the sword and turned to leave the chamber, glancing once more at Scaerath's still form. For all the dragon's cruelty, Aryn felt a strange pang of respect. Scaerath had been an enemy, yes, but also a prisoner. The path back through the black hollow seemed shorter now, though the air carried a new weight. Outside, the sky had not yet cleared. The same iron gray clouds pressed low, and the wind was sharp with the scent of ash. When he emerged from the barren stretch beyond the hollow, he saw movement at the tree line. A shape stepped forward from the shadows of the frostwood, white fur, eyes like winter stars. The wolf. Aryn stopped, his breath catching. "You knew," he said. The wolf inclined its head. The dragon was not the curse. He was its vessel, but the spark was needed to break him, and to face what comes next. What comes next? The shadow will seek another vessel. If it finds one of your kind, it will root itself in the heart of Eldralore, and no fire will burn it out. Aryn felt the exhaustion in his bones, but also a clarity. "Then we stop it before it finds one." The wolf stepped closer, its gaze steady. "The spark is yours now, fully. Guard it well. It will burn only once more, and when it does, it will burn away everything or nothing at all." Before Aryn could ask more, the wolf turned and melted into the trees, vanishing like frost under sun. The young prince stood alone in the quiet, the weight of what he carried settling on him. The people would cheer the death of the dragon, but the true battle was still ahead. And this time, the enemy would not come with claws or flame. The journey back to Eldralore was quieter than the journey out. The sky above was still heavy with ash and cloud, but the weight on Aryn's shoulders felt different now. Less burden, more resolve. Villagers and guards alike gathered as he approached the castle gates, their eyes wide with a mix of fear, hope, and disbelief. The tale of the dragon's fall had already spread, carried on the wind like wildfire. Yet, Aryn said nothing of the shadow that still lingered beneath the surface. King Eldrin met him on the steps of the great hall, his eyes shining with a father's pride and a ruler's gratitude. "You have done what none before dared," the king said, placing a heavy hand on Aryn's shoulder. "You have saved us all." Aryn bowed his head but met his father's gaze steadily. "The dragon is dead, yes, but the curse is not broken." A hush fell over the crowd. From the gathered court wizard, an aged man with eyes like molten silver, came a quiet voice. The prince speaks truth. We must prepare, for the shadow seeks a new host. Aryn looked out over the assembled people, his kingdom, his home. The spark within me burns still, and I will guard it with all my strength. But I will need you, all of you, to stand with me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, growing into a swell of determination. The kingdom would not falter, not now, not ever. Later, as twilight softened the sky, Aryn stood atop the castle walls, gazing toward the frostwood's dark edge. Somewhere in those ancient trees, the white wolf waited, a silent sentinel, a reminder of the bond between light and shadow. The spark was a flicker, small but unyielding, a promise of dawn after endless night. And as the stars began to pierce the twilight, Aryn knew this was only the beginning. Thank you for listening. Make yourself comfortable, relax, and enjoy the sound of the crackling fire.